Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Friday and welcome to another video where I talk about the books that I've read during the week and also the books that I'm currently reading. I hope you guys had a good week. Mine was pretty good. It was an enjoyable week with a lot of eventful things. And November's coming to a close. I can't believe it. So next week's going to be the last week of November, and I still have 3 books from my TBR to finish, so that's going to be interesting, and I hope that I'm able to finish everything on time because I'm very pedantic with this. I really like to finish, my reading schedule on time, and I do not like distractions. So, yeah, I hope you guys had a good week as well. I hope you guys are getting ready for the holiday season. It's a very happy time for a lot of people, and for some others, it's not. So I know it can be a mixed bag, but I hope that in general everybody's doing a good time during this, time of year. So for this week, I finished 1 book, and I am in the process of reading 2 books. Um, one of these books was not meant to be part of my TBR for this month, but then a little pleasant surprise happened, which I will be talking about later in the video, and then when I'm going to be discussing that book, and it got added to my TBR. So yeah. So the first book that I'm going to be talking about that I finished reading is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Now, this was a buddy read with my friends, and I had a great time reading it. Um, but I felt a lot, a lot of emotions while reading this book. Uh, the thing is, this is a contemporary book. It's based in real life. It is not fantasy. It's as real as it can get. Uh, and the thing is, whenever I read real life books, books that are set in the real world, that are not, there's no fantasy element to it. It's hyper realistic. And I tend to get really emotionally impacted by the events that take place in that book. I am not saying that in fantasy, whenever we read about difficult topics like, I don't know, murder, sexual assault, betrayal, or whatever, I'm not saying it's not impactful, but for me personally, whenever I read it through a fantasy lens, there's a kind of detachment. I am aware that this is just a made-up world and we are exploring concepts. This might just be unique to me. However, when I read something that is based on reality, I it just hits me different. It hits me differently. Uh, because it's just so relatable to me as a person, because the characters in this book, they are people like me, like they're the average people that we are, and they are going through the motions of life. And anytime something big happens, I'm like, ouch, that hit me hard, that tugged at my heartstrings. And this one really does tug at the heartstrings for me, personally. So this is a book about 2 people, a girl named, I'm hoping I pronounce her name right, Sadie. I don't know if it's Sadie or Sadie. I'm just gonna call her Sadie. And then another guy named Sam. So what happens is that Sam gets into a very bad accident when he's a child. So he is left with a disability. His foot has been severely damaged, so he is at the hospital. So what happens is that Sadie, for her to be able to fulfill the conditions of her bar mitzvah, she has to do community service. So for her community service, she chooses to spend time with Sam and basically give him a good conversation and make him feel less lonely. And Sam was very traumatized since the accident. He hasn't spoken a word since, and Sadie is the only girl who was able to, well, the only person who was able to get him to open up and get him to talk. So the two bond as children, and they basically both bond over video games. So they're both very geeky kids. Uh, they love video games. I love video games too. I'm sure many of you do. So they bond over video games, and then they have this very close bond with each other. Um, so this is the beginning of their story, and this story spans around 30 years, right? So what I find beautiful about this story is that it's such a realistic piece that shows the progression of life from absolute innocence as a child to all the struggles and issues that adult life can bring to us and all the ways that we can become jaded as we grow older. So this is a very emotional book. We see these people growing up, and for a time they are separated after their kids. There's this thing that happens that separates them. They do not speak for a while, but then they reconnect later in life in their teens. And basically they decide to do a project together. They decide to build a game together. Uh, Sadie is a very smart programmer. She's very good with technology, and Sam is also very smart and intelligent. So they both come together to build a game, and they start a business where they're basically game designers. And we basically follow through on this journey with them. We see them growing older. We see their interactions. They have such a I am gonna call it I don't know if I should call it a beautiful relationship. I don't know if it's a beautiful relationship, but it is a very heartwarming, touching relationship. A lot of issues happen between the two. It's a very interesting story where I don't even know if I can call it a love story because it can be counted as a love story in one way, but it's also much more than that. It's just about two souls just connecting on such an intimate level that our definition of love might not be enough to encompass what the description of their relationship actually is. So, yeah, that's what I came up with when I'm trying to describe their relationship. They met each other at a very young age when they were both so innocent, and at that age we usually, as human beings, we don't have all the shields and all the walls that we have when we grow up, you know. So they connected in such a strong way, and we're gonna see throughout those 30 years like whether this connection, this bond that has, you know, like happened between them at such a young age, will it last? Will that bond that they have be enough to weather all the storms that are about to come as they grow older? So it's a very emotional journey. I would say both Sam and Sadie are very flawed people in their own ways. I alternated being upset by one and the other throughout this book. So at some moments I was upset at Sam, and at other moments I was upset at Sadie. At other times I was upset at both. And then a lot of things happen that are so emotional and so heart-wrenching, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm sure this is very common in like these types of stories where sometimes we feel so deeply for somebody, but we cannot communicate the exact depth of how we feel in a very effective way. So our emotions would come out in different ways. They might come out as rage, they might come out as bitterness, they might come out as jealousy, which might damage the relationship further. So like a lot of these dynamics take place. And I would say both are very flawed characters in their own way, which is beautiful in my opinion, because it's just so realistic. It's such a realistic, you know, painting of two individuals who go through really hard times in life. They go through very traumatic events, both of them do, and these traumatic events really do scar them in very deep ways. And you cannot expect somebody who was traumatized to be able to kind of interact with other people in a very healthy way, you know. Ideally, they would find the time to go to therapy, to heal, to somehow come at peace with what happened with them and to use it to grow. But in real life, as we all know, that is not the case. Sometimes our traumas impact us in such a way that they even impact our future relationships. So these two people go through a lot of trauma, and we're just gonna have to see while reading if they will be able to surpass their trauma and find their way to each other like they were like they have as kids. It's a very beautiful, beautiful story. Uh, there are some things that really pissed me off though. There is particularly like one character that I despised. I truly, truly, truly despised. He was very frustrating, and he was basically an abusive person, so he has inflicted so much abuse on one of the main characters, and I'm like, how are you getting away with this? Like, because sometimes like we just see horrible things happen and we see somebody do very horrible, unforgivable, unacceptable things, but then we kind of see a redemption arc, or like we see not a redemption arc, I'm sorry, but we see them getting caught and getting held accountable for what they have done. But in my opinion, this person throughout the book, he was not held accountable for what he did. And that really pissed me off. It made me angry, but I do not fault the author for writing the story this way because, again, this is a realistic book. And in real life, unfortunately, many people like do like a lot of abuse. They commit a lot of abuse and they are not held accountable. They get away with it. It's just part of life, which really pains me to say, but it happens. And you can't expect everyone to be brought to justice in a way. And sometimes even the person that is abused would not see that as abuse, or they would just turn a blind eye to it, or they would, just, push it under the rug, not seek action, to get justice or anything. And this is what kind of happened in the story, and it really upset me. When you guys, or if you guys read this book, you will know, I think, what I'm talking about because it's a very obvious thing that happens in the book that just really enraged me. Like, I would be reading those pages and I would feel like my blood growing cold, And I'm like, why is this happening? So, yeah, it's just a very heart-wrenching, it's an emotional roller coaster. The way it ended, again, I would say like it was a bit anticlimactic for me, for my taste, but again, it kind of adds to the realism of it. It's very realistic. Like the way it ended was how you would expect things to end in real life, you know? So I really, really enjoyed this book. I would give it like maybe 4.5 stars to five. I'm not sure yet. I will put my final rating when I upload my review on Goodreads and I have time to think about it. I just finished this book like 2 days ago and I still have to kind of, think about it more to know what I really feel about it. But it is definitely an unforgettable book. It is not a book that I will forget easily. And usually, when a book is that good, it goes from 4 to 5 stars for me, you know? So, yeah, that is one book that I really recommend you guys read if you haven't already. It is an emotional roller coaster. Be ready for some trigger warnings, like, for example, like death, violent death, sexual assault. We have these themes going around, and you just have to be ready to encounter these themes when you read this book. If you're comfortable with them, I would really give this book a try because it was just very impactful and it was just a very, heartwarming book to read. And I would even be interested in a sequel. I would even be interested in a sequel. I would want to see how some characters, grow even further from this book, you know? So yeah, this is one book out of the way, and now the next two books I'm going to be talking about are books that I'm currently reading. Now, one of them was not on my TBR. It's called Blood Over Bright Haven by Emma Wang. Now, she is a very well-known fantasy author, and I was not planning on reading this book. However, uh, um, me and members of a book club that I'm part of on Discord, we basically reconnected again after a long hiatus. Basically, we decided to read this book together, and I'm like, yeah, sure, let's read it. So I am reading this now, and this is basically a very interesting fantasy, where like at first when I was reading this book, I was expecting it to be, like maybe medieval Asian fantasy in a way, Eastern Asian fantasy that is medieval, that is, based on ancient China maybe or ancient Japan, like of that sort. However, it's not quite like that. It has such elements, I think, but it's also kind of, set in a realistic urbanish setting where you have like modern cities and you have radios, and you have police officers with guns, but you also have magic, right? So what I really love so far about reading this, I think I'm 25% in the book right now, is that the magic system is very nice. It's very interesting. It kind of somehow reminds me of Sanderson in a way. Like it's a very specific, logical magic system, and the author here, she mixes computer science programming with magic. So We basically have like some sort of spellogram where we type in code, and that code will basically use magic to, will use magical energy to initiate spells, basically. So what you do is, for example, let's say you want to push something, you want to, like, I don't know, uh, levitate these glasses, right? So what you would do is you would have to uh, write code in the machine, and basically that, and you have to define what the glasses are. So you would say, you would define this object as glasses, and then you would write a code that will transfer magical energy into the environment that you are in. And sometimes you would have to siphon magic from another world, another realm, basically, and you have to do it with such precision to be able to effectively levitate the glasses in the exact measure that you want to levitate it. So it's a very scientific-ish book with that mixes like science and magic, so it's just very nice. I really enjoyed that. Uh, so yeah, like I'm reading that so far, and we basically what I enjoy so far about this book is that so far it's through one perspective, like there's one point of view. There might be a second point of view coming along sometime, I'm not sure. But so far there's one point of view, which, when I read fantasy, I love fantasy, but sometimes I get a bit daunted in the beginning when I'm having to figure out each point of view. Like when fantasy books have 3 to 4 point of views, and I'm just getting into one point of view and trying to figure out the character out and trying to get attached to them. Whoop, I just get taken to another point of view. So with this one, since we are basically focusing on one character so far, I like that because it just drew me in more quickly. With other fantasy books, I need some time to be able to get used to all the perspectives and to be able to, start enjoying the story in a fluid, smooth way. So far, I like that. We are basically following a girl who is becoming high mage. She applied for school to become a high mage, and she is the first girl in history, the woman in history, to be, given this position. And she is in school, so we have an academic setting. We have some Hogwarts vibes, kind of, like we have an academic setting where we have students, we have research. So it's that kind of thing, So if you like academia, if you like seeing your main character go to school and study and, school drama, school life drama, like I think that, higher education drama more like it's not really like a high school type of thing. It's like they're like, it's kind of like a university setting. Uh, if you enjoy that sort of academic leaning fantasy, I think you would really like this book so far. I'm really liking it so far. I'm very into reading the book. Uh, and yeah, like I'm trying to see where this will go. Uh, so far, we are at a part where, we're still getting to know this character. We're still getting to, we're kind of seeing her beginnings in the school and how she's trying to somehow sort of prove herself as a female. She is, as the first female, like, mage, she is very, she has a lot to prove basically in this world because almost everybody around her is mocking her. Almost everybody around her is, you know, uh, making fun of her and not believing in her and thinking that she has been admitted into the school sheerly because she seduced one of the professors, or they're trying to make a political statement by having her in, it's that type of thing. So she is having to prove herself, and she's a very intelligent character, and I'm just really loving her story so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So yeah, I'm excited to be reading that. And what I'm also reading is act now. The next book that I'm going to be talking about was part of my original TBR, and it's The Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin. Uh, I'm like about 100 pages, like I'm on page 100 right now exactly in the book. I'm basically doing it as a side read. I'm trying to, finish these two chunky books, before the month ends, while also going to my other, books in my TBR. Now this one, The Shadowed Sun, I I think I'm enjoying it so far. I'm still, getting to know the people. Like this is one of the fantasy books where we have, you know, multiple point of views, multiple perspectives. We have multiple characters. So usually when we have a fantasy that's like that, it takes me a bit to start to warm up to everybody. So I think I usually start getting into the story, in an immersive way and like, after the 150 page mark or something. And I think I'm slowly getting there with this one. And what I like is that this is basically a continuation of the first book. So it is the same vibe, the same energy. We are still in the same city. It is following the aftermath of what happened in the first book, but it's also different. That's what I like. We have a different sort of enemy here. uh, in the first book, like, it was still a mystery. This is also a mystery. The enemy is kind of mysterious. Uh, in the first book, we basically had the Reaper, who was basically, a gatherer, a person who collects people's dreams, who has gone bad, who has gone evil, and he devours everybody's souls, and he is being used by a higher power to wreak havoc and political instability to be able to, conquer land. Here in this one, we basically have I feel like so far this is a much more complex book where we have several things going on at the same time. We have on one end, we have somebody who is trying to reclaim the throne that he thinks is his right. And then we have another group of people who are basically trying to see what is best for the city and to somehow maneuver the political environment to be able to reach their own goals by using this person. And then we have a third party who is basically infesting people's dreams with a sort of, I'm not sure if I could call it a virus or something. It's like a thing that is, spreading among the people where it's giving them nightmares and it's killing them during their nightmares. And then, apart from all of this, we have new characters. We have old characters that are returning from the first book, which makes me happy because, one of these characters I really, really like. And then we have a new character who is basically the first sharer. A sharer is basically somebody who heals people using dream magic. So in the first book, we focus on gatherers, who are people who, you know, put people to death in their sleep, basically, when they are deemed to be corrupt, when the person is deemed to be corrupt. But these people heal, they heal people using dream magic. So we are basically also exploring the point of view of a healer. She's the first woman to also, to have this kind of position. So she also has to prove herself in a way. And she's also in a very tense situation. And she is also finding herself dragged into this whole drama going on with like the political machinations taking place. So it's very complex and interesting so far. And I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. And I think I'm going to get more into it as I progress into the story. It is much more complex, but it's also like it's more multi-layered. We have more characters. We have more of a nuance in the story. We have more things going on. So Jemisin basically is expanding the scope. So in the first book, she built a nice foundation, and in this one, she's expanding that foundation, and we're basically seeing more characters and more hidden agendas and more, intrigue, political intrigue happening. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how this is gonna unfold. So these are the three books that I'm reading for now. I still have two books to read. I still have Nettle and Bone to read and House of Hollow to read. And yeah, I'm just excited. I have to finish all these books by next week, hopefully. Hopefully I will finish them and then I can, you know, jump into my December TBR. So yeah, these were my, these were my bookish updates for this week. If you guys watch this, let me know what you guys are doing, what you are reading, if you've heard of any of these books, what you guys think. And yeah, give me your thoughts in the comment section below. And I will see you guys next week, next Friday, for another video where I would have hopefully finished two of these books that I'm reading. I would actually have hopefully finished all the books that I'm reading because next Friday is December. So yeah, we will see. So yeah, guys, that was all. I hope you guys have a great weekend ahead, and I'll see you guys next time for another video. Bye-bye.